This recording was recovered from a courier's personal route notebook found inside a roadhouse register box. The register lists the same room assigned to multiple occupants on the same night. Only one receipt was paid.
I ran night freight because it paid better and because the roads were quieter. Marlowe Company didn't care what you preferred, as long as you arrived when you said you would and didn't bring attention back with you. I liked the part of the job where the world narrowed down to a route card, a fuel stop, a signature, and the next set of headlights. That week, I was moving small cargo. Not light, not valuable, just small. 2 crates and a canvas bag that stayed with me in the cab. The paperwork called it replacement components for industrial valves, the kind of words that make people stop listening. I picked it up outside of a rail spur that didn't have a station building anymore. Just a platform, an oil drum for a trash can, and a hand-painted sign that had been repainted so many times you couldn't tell what the first name was. The man who handed me the crates didn't ask for my name. He checked my route card, checked the seals, and slid the forms back with a thumbprint smudge where his skin must have been stained with grease. "You're going south," he said. "Until I'm not," I replied, because that was how it worked some nights. He looked past me down the tracks as if he expected something else to come through. "Don't stop in towns," he said. "Stop where it says." I didn't argue. I've learned that advice you don't understand is usually still good advice. The route card had 3 lines on it, a fuel stop, a handoff point, and a place marked simply as Temp Shelter, mile 119, room 3. No town name, no proprietor, no name to sign under. Just a line where I was meant to write a time and my initials. I drove until the last light from the rail yard disappeared in the mirror. The road was 2 lanes and flat, cutting through scrub and low pines. No moon. The sky had that dry, starless look, like the clouds were high but thick enough to swallow everything above you. By 10, the radio was useless. Static that never broke into a song. I turned it off and listened to the engine instead. The crates rode smooth in the back, strapped down. The canvas bag sat on the passenger side floor where my boot could pin it if I needed it. It felt wrong to let it out of reach. That wasn't paranoia, that was habit. At mile 87, I passed a town with a water tower and a lit diner sign. I didn't stop. The route card didn't tell me to, and the man at the spur had been clear. At mile 101, I saw another set of headlights behind me. They held a steady distance. Not tailgating, not drifting back. Just sitting there like a second engine had decided my speed was the correct one. I watched them in the mirror for 10 minutes, then 20. I told myself it was a traveler who didn't want to be alone on a dark road. But the distance stayed exact. When I eased off the accelerator, they eased off. When I sped up, they sped up. No weaving, no impatience, just matching. At mile 112, I pulled slightly onto the shoulder as if to let them pass. They didn't. They moved with me, keeping the same spacing, as if the shoulder was part of the lane for them. That's when I stopped thinking about it as a car. I didn't know what it was. I'm not giving it a name, but I stopped believing it was just another driver. The shelter was at mile 119, the way the route card promised. That part was correct. A low building set back from the road with a gravel loop and a single sodium light that made everything look sickly and old. No sign, no open windows, no noise. Just the light, the building, and a few parked vehicles that looked like they'd been sitting there long enough for dust to choose them. I pulled into the loop and killed the engine. The headlights behind me did the same, not close. Still that same distance. Far enough to feel like I couldn't accuse it of following even if I wanted to. I sat for a moment with my hands on the wheel, listening to the metal tick as it cooled. Then I took the route card, tucked it in my jacket, and stepped out. The air smelled like dry grass and old fuel. Somewhere behind the building I heard water moving, but there wasn't a river on my map for miles. The door to the shelter wasn't locked. Inside, the place had the shape of a roadhouse, but none of the life. A counter. A bell on the counter. A wall of cubbyholes for keys. A register book open to a page that already had lines filled in. A lamp on the counter was on, but the bulb was dim, like it had been burning for weeks. I rang the bell once, no footsteps came. I rang it again. From the back hallway, a man appeared. Not rushed, not surprised to see me. Middle-aged, plain shirt, no apron, no name tag. His face had the blank calm of someone working a late shift where nothing ever really changes. "You're early," he said. I checked my watch. "I'm on time." He nodded as if both statements could be true without conflict. "Name?" he asked. I gave him the name on my company card, not my full name, the one Marlowe used for paperwork. He wrote it down without looking at me and slid the register closer. "Room 3, he said. I didn't ask how he knew. I didn't ask why the register already had my room assigned. I'd learned not to press on things that had already decided what they were. He reached into one of the key cubbies and handed me a small brass key with a tag that read 3 in faded ink. Then he slid something else across the counter. A receipt, not a bill. A receipt already stamped paid. I stared at it. The date was correct. The shelter name line was blank. The amount was written in neat print, and at the bottom, in the space where an attendant would normally sign, there was a mark like an initial. 2 letters pressed so hard the paper had torn slightly. I didn't recognize the handwriting, but I recognized the pressure. I kept my face still and folded the receipt into my pocket. "Do you need help with the load?" the man asked, nodding toward the door like he could see through walls. "No," I said. He didn't insist. Room 3 was at the end of the hallway. The carpet was threadbare and smelled faintly like damp wood, though the air outside was dry. The doors were close together, each with a small metal number plate. I opened the door and stepped inside. A bed, a desk, a small sink, a window facing the parking loop. On the desk was a pen and a single blank form. Not a letterhead, not a Marlowe form. Just a plain sheet of paper with one line already printed. Received. Time. I set the key down on the desk and stood by the window. Outside, under the sodium light, the vehicle that had followed me sat at the edge of the loop. I couldn't see a driver. The windshield reflected the light so flat, it looked opaque. Then, slowly, the headlights went out. Not like someone turned them off, like the bulbs simply stopped being lit. The shape of the vehicle stayed, darker now, harder to hold with my eyes. I told myself it was someone sleeping. I told myself it was a truck with electrical trouble. I told myself whatever I needed to because I still had work to do. I went back outside to the cargo. The crates were where I'd left them. The straps were tight, the seals intact. The canvas bag was still in the cab. I opened the driver's side door and reached down for it. My hand hit the floor mat. The bag wasn't there. I froze, holding that position, as if the bag might reappear if I didn't move. Then I checked again, more carefully, sweeping my hand along the edges of the seat, under the pedals, behind the door pocket. Nothing. I stepped back and looked at the cab like it was a room I'd never been in. No signs of entry, no cut, no broken lock. The passenger side door was still locked from the inside. The bag was just gone. I could have panicked. I didn't. Not because I wasn't alarmed, but because panic doesn't help you reconstruct a timeline. I went inside and rang the bell again. The man appeared in the hallway as if he'd been waiting behind the wall. "I'm missing a piece of cargo," I said. He nodded once, slow, not surprised, not concerned. "Did you bring it in?" he asked. "It was in my cab," I said. "Now it isn't." He looked down at the register, then at the receipt I'd folded into my pocket, as if he could see it through the fabric. "Room 3 is paid," he said. "That doesn't answer me." He lifted his eyes, calm, professional. "It does," he said, and then he gestured toward the hallway. "Go sleep." I stared at him, waiting for another sentence. He didn't give one. I went back to my room because there were only 2 choices: escalate it into noise, or obey the shape the night had taken. I locked the door and sat on the bed without taking my boots off. For a long time, I listened. No footsteps in the hallway, no voices, no distant television. Outside, the sodium light kept buzzing, steady and weak. At some point, late enough that my watch face looked unfamiliar, I heard a vehicle start, not in the parking loop. Farther back, behind the building where the sound of water had been. The engine was low and smooth. It idled for a moment, then moved off. No headlights passed my window. No tires crunched the gravel loop. The sound simply traveled away, softening too quickly, like it was being absorbed by something that wasn't distance. I got up and went to the desk. I filled in the blank form with the only thing I could write truthfully. Received, time, 0214. Item, none presented. I didn't sign it. In the morning, the parking loop looked normal again. The vehicle that had followed me was gone. No tracks in the gravel beyond the ordinary ones. No oil spot, no cigarette butt. Nothing to prove it had been there. My cab door was still locked. The crates were still strapped. The canvas bag was still missing. And I drove out without speaking to the man at the counter. He wasn't there. But the register book was open to the same page. And beside my name, someone had added one more line in the margin. Small and neat. Delivery window met. I kept driving south. At the handoff point later that day, the receiving clerk checked my papers, checked the seals on the crates, and asked for the bag. I told him I didn't have it. He didn't look surprised. He just took out his stamp, pressed it down on my route card, and slid it back. Then it's been received, he said. And I'm clear? I asked. He paused as if considering whether that was a question he was allowed to answer. You're still moving, he said finally, which was true. It was the only thing that was.
The shelter register was recovered without a proprietor, name, or property deed attached. Room 3 is listed repeatedly in the book, often with overlapping times. No matching payment records were found.